Yes, so students, welcome back. So period, history class, and we are again going back to the chapter 1. I hope you remember the points that we discussed the other day. And history is going to make you a responsible citizen when you grow up. You know your past and you're feeling proud. Okay, children, we come back to the lesson. Now first let's revise what we did the other day. Okay, we talked about maps. Many changes were taking place and we have taken two important maps we discussed. One map that was prepared by Al-Idrisi. Remember Al-Idrisi, upside down. I won't go in detail because I had already discussed, and it was in Persian. It was used by travelers for 3 centuries, and then we come back to 17th century or 18th century, and there a French cartographer had prepared a map that was more like the maps that we use now, and Kannauj were mentioned in both the maps. That means Kannauj was a very important place for trade. Though it was in north, but people came here for trade. It was an important place during that time in the medieval period. Okay, next we discussed about the terminology. Terminology means terms that were used. Now historians, when they are collecting data, they are trying to write history, events, so they look up at the words. So in different periods, the words mean differently. So we had discussed 2 words here, Hindustan. The word, today when we talk about India or Hindustan, we mean politically we are talking about country as one. Okay, geographical, cultural, okay, that is, but national we have, we in the context of nation we talk about. But that time, in the beginning, in the 13th century, Minaz-e-Siraj had used this word while writing, and he had used to depict or convey the rule of Delhi Sultanate. That was in north, Haryana, Punjab, and the land between Ganga and Yamuna. But Babur, the first Mughal emperor, when he mentioned in Baburnama, he used this word Hindustan, but he wanted to convey about the geography of this subcontinent India. Geography, culture, and fauna, the animal and the flora of the subcontinent. Amir Khusro in 14th century had also mentioned Hindu, and he also wanted to convey the geography and the culture of the subcontinent India. So this was what we studied the last time. Now we also talked about the sources through which historians collect events when they are writing history or when they are writing the events. The sources from which they collect, it's not easy. And we had talked about the coins and inscriptions and architecture and so on. But the most important in the medieval period was the textual, and because paper was in use in the medieval period, had already been invented and it was being used. It became cheaper as the years went by, and the rulers, the kings, the priests, the monasteries and judicial and many records, administrative records were all maintained on paper, and rich people, the rulers, they kept this in libraries or archives. It's not archives, I pronounced last time I was watching my video, so that's why I written here archive, the place where they keep the important manuscripts or records safely is called archives. So they kept here and in library. And all this we discussed last time, and then we also discussed about the manuscripts and the scribes. We talked about the scribes and how it was different from the original one because of copying. It just because of that we mentioned about Ziauddin Barani. He had written manuscript in 1356, and 2 years after again he had written. But scribes, when they were writing, they missed one page here, some other missed the other page, paragraph, a word, or they added on their own, and so down the years, the original one, nobody knew about the original one, but in 1960 when the historians found, they were very surprised that it was very different from the one that was available, mainly available or circulating. So that is one of the examples to show how the scribes, what they wrote, there were some drawbacks also. So, and I have written here two more words, nastalik, the way, two ways in which Arabic and Persian were written. Persian, remember Irani language, or the that time, modern we call Iran, but that time it was called Persia. So nastalik and shikaste. Nastalik and shikaste. Nastalik was more easy to understand. It was not very crowded one, whereas shikaste was difficult. The script was in Arabic or Persian. It was written either nastalik way or shikaste way. Nastalik means was easy to understand. It was not very overcrowded, not very close. And shikaste, whereas, was very close and very difficult to understand. See, like for example, I write my name, like my Shahana. Okay, Shah, Ha, Na. So I have written Shah, Ha, Na. I have written. So this is easy to understand. But if somebody writes very close, Ha, Na, and then Thakur also very close, so it became very difficult to understand. I think here in the picture also you can see here the different writings. They are given on the page 6 in your book. They have given, and you can try and understand these two. Nastalik, the way the Persian and Arabic was written, it was either nastalik or shikaste. And the scribes wrote them, copied. They used these two methods. Nastalik was cursive and easy to understand, whereas shikaste was difficult. It was very closely written and difficult to understand. Okay, so this we discussed the other day. Now we come to the changes in the society, the political and society, what changes took place. Now children, in when we look at 700 to 1750, okay, quite a big period, okay, many years, and there were many changes with as the years or the centuries went by. Now, if we look at the people, like last time I told you that the forest dwellers who lived in forest, now they began to have settled life. More of peasants or farmers began to grow. So, and traders began to come. Okay, many traders, merchants, invaders came in the middle, and different invaders at different times. So there was lot of change. And when people come to a different country or when they settle there, so they bring some changes also. And in technology, okay, there was a change in technology. So let us look at the changes that took place. Wheel, okay, now that spinning wheel, it was in the medieval period that spinning wheel began to be used to weave cloth. Then Persian wheel was used for irrigation. Then there were crops. Okay, the foreigners who came and settled here, they brought with them, or the merchants who came, so they brought these fruits or the new crops, for example, potato, chilies and corn. And there were beverages. Beverages means drinking like tea and coffee. So tea and coffee also. So it began in the medieval period. Farmers began to grow these crops. So this was a change. Now, and in this period we find a lot of political and economical and social changes taking place. And there was mobility of the groups of the people moving in the subcontinent. Now let us look at the different groups that emerged. First, most important would be Rajputs. I would want to mention Rajputs. Rajput word has been derived from Rajputana. Oh, I'm sorry. Rajaputra. It has come from the word Rajaputra. That means son of a king. So they were usually warriors. Okay, the warriors, whether it was a king, he was a king or chief or soldiers or commanders, they were called Rajputs or Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas. Remember Kshatriyas, the warriors. So Rajputs, and there were other groups like there were Jats, Marathas. In the medieval period, the growth, the strengthening of these groups, Rajputs, okay, the warriors, they were Kshatriyas, okay. Then we had Jats, Marathas, Sikhs, and Ahoms. All these grew in this period. And then the Kayast that we know now, it grew in this medieval period. Kayast were mainly the scribes, the people who were scribes or secretaries. So they were called Kayast. Okay, they were in writing. Okay, so these were the groups. Now, I just mentioned that people began to have a settled life. More farmers began to have a settled life, and the villages grew, and there were temples. You read in the last year also how villages grew. So then these peasants came and settled in these villages, and they were influenced by the people there, by the temples, by the rulers, by the monasteries and so on. And they had to pay taxes, okay, or offerings they had to give to the king or the ruler or whoever the chief was. So that was the change taking place. And if we look at the peasants, the farmers, then they were big farmers or peasants, and those who were not big or those who were not so rich. And the rich ones, the rich farmers had large fields or large area of land, and with these cattle they had. There is poor farmers or the farmers who were not rich. They did farming, and in the when there was no farming, or in the period when there was a gap, they used to do artisan work. Okay, lean period we can say. Then okay, the habitat. The word habitat also, I think it's given in your meanings. If you look at the book in the side, habitat word also, you come across this word habitat. Habitat means a person living in the region, in that environment, in that region. It refers to the region, environment, economic lifestyle. Okay, that falls under habitat. Okay, now we find that jatis. Okay, these people they began to live in villages, and people were divided on the basis of jatis or sub-castes. And jatis, and these jatis they had their own panchayat. Okay, they had the jati panchayat, which they had rules and regulations of their own, and which the group had to follow, and they had to also follow the rules or the regulations of the chief of the village. So that was how the villages were changing. Now we come to the next one, and that is the regions and regions. There was region and empire, and in this period, in medieval period, in chapters that you will read, all this what we are discussing, you are going to read it in the chapters, or you will discuss in the chapters, coming chapters. Now region and empire. So now we find that villages grew, regions grew, people began to live, and dynasties, Chola dynasty, Gupta dynasty, Mughals, Tughlaq, they all grew in the this medieval period. Okay, some ruled only a state or a kingdom, whereas others ruled in the most parts of the subcontinent, or 10 region we can say. In one of the Sanskrit Prashasti means praise, written manuscript or words that are written in praise. It is called Prashasti. Come across you'll come in the second chapter also, you'll come across this word Prashasti. So in one of the Sanskrit Prashasti, we read about Sultan, we come across Sultan Ghiyasuddin Balban. He was from 1266 to 1287, and a lot of praise has been written in his for him, that he had his rule from Bengal. Bengal was called Gauda. Bengal, right in the east, Bengal, it stretched up till Afghanistan, Gaji or Gajana in Afghanistan, and then in South India, that is Dravida. It was, and he in Prashasti it has also been mentioned that he was such a great emperor, ruler, that when his army, or when he was facing the armies of either Marathas or of Karnataka, or not Maratha, Maharashtra or Karnataka or Kerala, or some more states, they could not stand before him. They used to flee away. They fled the field when Ghiyasuddin Balban came. Now, how far now historians doubt about this praise, and they have to find out the truth. They doubt because rulers, they had their own poets, they had own the scribes who wrote in praise of them. So maybe this is all exaggeration. It cannot be true to such an extent, exaggeration, but historians have to find this out. Okay, now next we come to religions. Okay, there was change in the religion also, the way of worship. Okay, the way of worship, like in Hindu, let us look at Hindu religion. Hindu religion also saw many changes taking place. In the beginning, the Brahmins were very important. They had all the rituals and were conducted by them. They had patrons, the rulers and the kings, and they were under their patrons, and lot of respect. They knew Sanskrit text. They were because these manuscripts, they were written by hand, so ordinary people could not get them. So they were expensive. These manuscripts were expensive, and these people, they had respect because they knew text, Sanskrit text. And then another movement is of Bhakti movement that you'll find, you'll read in other chapters. Bhakti movement taking place. The Bhakti movement means now even common persons or common people began to worship deities. Earlier they were not allowed to take part in the worship. Only rulers or people belonging to higher positions could take part in worship, where Brahmins used to, a lot of rituals were there and he used to perform. But now in this medieval period, we find that Bhakti movement was also there. Bhakti movement means common people began to worship either at home, they made their temples, or outside they had their own deities like Krishna or Shankar or some other deities. So they had Durga, so they had their deities, and they had the pictures, they had their statues, they placed in those temples, and they could reach out to these deities or pray to them, worship them without any rituals. Okay, so this was the change in the Hindu religion that we find in the medieval period. Now we come to the Muslims. The merchants, missionaries, and especially the invaders, when they came here in India, subcontinent, Hindustan, they brought with them Muslim religion or Islam. It's called Islam, and holy book of Islam or Muslims, it is Quran. Okay, having so the holy book in the 7th century. merchants and migrants brought teachings of the Holy Quran of India in the 7th century. It had already come to India in the 7th century. And like Hindus who were all divided, Brahmins and Kshatriyas and Kayas, same way we find in Muslims also, they were also divided. They were Shias, Sunnis. Shias were the ones who followed Prophet Muhammad's son-in-law, Ali. So they were the followers of course they followed Prophet Muhammad, but they believed in Ali, more in Ali also. But whereas Sunni believes in Khalifas or the leaders, okay, of their religion. So they believed in them, and apart from that there were more division of Hanafi, Shafi, then history and theology. So there were many divisions in the among Muslims as well. So now we come, so this is over. Now we come to the next, and that is the history, how the foreigners look at and how we look at, our historians look at Britishers. When Britishers were writing history, they divided in 3 parts: Hindu, Muslim and Christian. They said up till when Muslims did not come, it is Hindu history, and when Muslims came, it is Muslim, and when Britishers came, it was British. But it is wrong. Later on, historians felt that this division is wrong. First of all, you're dividing the people because the changes, when we divide it in Hindu, Muslim and Christian or British, then we are ignoring economical and cultural changes that were taking place. Okay, overall changes that were taking place in the subcontinent, we're just ignoring it. Okay, so because they were not bothered about the spirit of the people, superficial, so they divided the people in 3 periods. But historians don't believe in this division. Okay, so they divide in ancient period up till from the beginning till people began to clear forests and have a settled life in villages. They started building temples, rulers, growth of Brahmins. So this period, and then medieval period from 700, roughly from 700 to 750, growth, economical. There were invaders, and there were many changes. You're going to read in the chapters that follow. Then the modern history that we have today. Okay, so and modern history, that not only in technology but intellectual progress, changes also taking place, and we are going to read about all this in the lessons that follow. I hope you have understood, and you try and complete the questions, and in the next video we will discuss the question answers. And if you have any doubt, please go ahead and write in the comments. Okay, thank you, students.